Good afternoon. It is truly a pleasure to be here. When I arrived, it's hard to believe it was so long ago, in the fall of 1965 in Carlisle, Pennsylvania as a freshman, I was a student in need of significant financial assistance. That Dickinson provided that assistance to me has informed my view about the college and my view about being a member of a service profession whose responsibility it is to give something back to the community of which we are all a part. Fast forwarding 4 years, Bill was gracious enough not to mention that although we were colleagues, Bill was 2 years behind me. He normally mentions that, so I'll clarify the record at Dickinson. And some years later, following a reunion, I ran into a good friend of mine, and I wrote him at the time about my 4 years at Dickinson as a student of the late 60s, that it was Dickensian as opposed to Dickinsonian in the sense that it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. Because the graduate deferments had all gone away and the threat of the draft was something that hovered over the heads of all of us who spent time at Dickinson during those years. Yet, it was an astonishing time to be here and to have the opportunity to learn. You'll excuse my shifting glasses. Several years ago, I was in my office in Philadelphia and I was visited by the then new president of Dickinson College, Bill Durden, and this other fellow named Bob Massa, who I'd never met before. And that was the beginning of my re-engagement with Dickinson College. And it is engagement which resonates with high energy for me each day. As I reflected on the opportunity to meet with and speak with you today, what struck me about my own education at Dickinson was something unique to a liberal arts education and something particularly unique about Dickinson. It just seems to me as if the world has increasingly placed demands on each of us, which are accompanied by this set of expectations, which we receive from our families, our teachers, our professors, our friends, our colleagues. And the result of those expectations, if not managed properly, can be an unfortunate narrowing of focus, a myopia, which defines and charts a career and then eliminates all the other paths that are inconsistent with that perceived or stated career goal. To me, that is not what a liberal arts education is about. Quite to the contrary. College is and should be a time for experimentation, for trying on new ideas and evaluating if and the extent to which they fit, for exposing oneself not only to new ideas, to new people, but also a time to seek adventure, new experience, travel to foreign countries, to stretch one's boundaries and learn that it often can be a good thing to feel uncomfortable. It is a time to question one's own assumptions, traditions, and values while appreciating them contemporaneously, to overcome the far too easy temptation to seek out only those people with whom you do feel comfortable, to be contrarian and to learn to think outside of the box. It is also a time, as my daughter, the editor, would say to me, to read, and then read some more, to think and to relish in the luxury of thoughtful reflection. I had the opportunity to speak to some of our lawyers in Dallas and Houston earlier this week, and one of the things that I spoke about was the fact that the changing nature of technology has dramatically affected the way in which we practice and we learn. The fact is that with texting and BlackBerry and cell phone, the demands made upon us are for immediate access and immediate response. And that's not always such a good thing, because one of the things that is lost in that process, which we have the opportunity to enjoy here, is the opportunity for thoughtful and mature reflection. And so as you're rushing to get something done, sometimes it's also helpful to pause and think about what one is doing before one does it. It is a lesson, I urge you, that will stand you in good stead for many, many years to come. So that not every venture will be successful as you experiment unless you choose to define success as the benefit to be obtained from trying any new venture, irrespective of outcome. I was roped into and then spent about 12 years of my life as the vice president of the board of Pennsylvania Ballet. And speaking of questionable challenges, because the ballet is and was, if you understand the art form, it's a money pit. It's just a hole into which you're constantly pouring money because you have to pay for the dancers, you have to pay for the choreography, you have to pay for the lighting, you have to pay for the scenery, you have to pay for the costumes, and if you have full-length story ballet, you typically have to pay for the orchestra. So, and as we would do these programs for the ballet, we found that the audience generally tended to like full-length story ballet because it's romantic and they're familiar with it. And they tended to be very uncertain about repertory ballet, a program where you might see 3 or 4 different programs. Well, the point was that college and a liberal arts education, at least in my mind's eye, is a lot like repertory ballet because you're not supposed to like everything you see. Some of it may inspire you, some of it may challenge you, some of it may offend you, and yes, some of it may bore you to tears. As a student, I was struck by how fortunate I was to have attended a college which had so many professors who were caring teachers and good people. My professors were hands-on. They knew their students. They cared about the quality of their students' work, but more importantly, they cared about the quality of their thinking. And learning to think critically and independently is the hallmark of a good liberal arts education. Learning to do so passionately and to care about the quality of one's life and the lives of those around you, to think about and care for your community and its future generations. These were things that I learned at Dickinson, though I did not know that I had learned those things at the time. Having spent much time with many members of our current faculty, I know that today's Dickinson students are even more fortunate than I, because the quality of our faculty and their commitment to innovative and creative teaching and learning is, in a word, astonishing. At the same time, Dickinson's commitment to sustainability in all its aspects and to ensuring the opportunity for meaningful and useful study abroad have brought this small Cumberland County, Pennsylvania institution national and indeed international recognition. 4 years ago, the value of Dickinson's endowment was less than $175 million. Today, it stands at double that and rising. At the start of our capital campaign, we set a goal of reaching $300 million by 2010. We reached our goal 3 years early. And even over this most difficult last 3-month period, I am pleased to report, as the President has reported to its board, that we have lost relatively little value, notwithstanding that others have lost a great deal more. And this is in great part because we have an extraordinary senior financial and investment staff, a highly talented trustees investment committee, and a tremendously valued investment advisor with whom we've partnered successfully beginning last year. As some of you will appreciate, performance such as this never is accidental. If I were hiring for a new for-profit or not-for-profit entity, I could never do any better than to hire Dickinson's current senior administration and the dean of its college. It continues to amaze me how fortunate we are to have been able to attract and retain such talent. Similarly, as the chair of the board's committee on trustees, we've been able to recruit new trustees to the college with great commitment, great talent, and high energy. And doing that is easy because we have such a good and wonderful story to tell. Uniquely Dickinson has taken on, and distinctly Dickinson has taken a very real meaning that not only enables the college to attract brilliant administrators, professors, and students to the college, but equally important, enables the college to retain them. Free agency is a phenomenon generally suffered by other institutions of higher learning. The only thing I can say to that, if we had also just had the foresight to have convinced young Stephen Curry that it was the Dickinson and not the Davidson, well, then really we would be saying something. Now, given our audience and the significance of this day, I think it's also important that we be transparent about talking about Dickinson's historic and ongoing commitment to grants and to financial aid. The combination of the two serves as a powerful resource to ensure that students who are accepted to Dickinson can come to Dickinson, can stay at the college, and learn to share in this uniquely and distinctly Dickinsonian experience. Having started my life at Dickinson as a scholarship recipient, for me to be here today, but mostly to be able to contribute in some small way to the college's ongoing commitment to its present and its future is the greatest of gifts. In closing, I thought about trying to find the right words, and I did, but they're not mine. I thought I would leave you with the thoughts of the retiring Chief Judge of the South Carolina Court of Appeals. That's the Intermediate Appellate Court. His name is Alex Sanders. And as upon his retirement, Judge Sanders authored a piece which he entitled A Judge's Swan Song. And I share that with you because of its relevance to our students who are our grant recipients. He wrote, "As you live the rest of your professional life, it will not do to assume that someone else will bear the major burdens, that someone else will demonstrate the key convictions, that someone else will represent the poor, that someone else will protect civil rights, enforce the law, preserve culture, transmit value, maintain civilization, and defend freedom." And then to the lawyers he wrote, "You must never forget that what you do not value about our noble profession," let's translate profession broadly, "will not be valued. That what you do not remember will not be remembered. And that what you do not change will not be changed." It is not really a question, he wrote, of what to do, but simply the will to do it. This was the product of my Dickinson experience. Judge Sanders finally wrote that he didn't believe that all the wisdom in the world is in law books or in any books for that matter. Actually, he said, the best advice he ever saw for a judge, a lawyer, a caring professional, a graduate of Dickinson College, he read on a jar of mayonnaise, and he gave it to us as a going-away present, and I share it with you. It said, "Keep cool, but do not freeze."